As we celebrate June Dairy Month, the STtalks by STgenetics and Uplevel Dairy podcast have band together to shine a bright light on a collection of great dairy stories. We are rooted in the same core value to provide insightful information to the modern dairy producer and believe sharing these uplifting stories may motivate a new mindset or change for your own dairy story.
I'm Peggy Coffeen, host of the Uplevel Dairy Podcast, which you can find on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
And I'm Laura Demmer, host of STtalks, which you can find on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and Deezer.
And in this series, you will hear incredible dairy stories that follow milk along a journey, from dairy farmers who are opening their doors and inviting consumers in for a seat at their table, to those who work behind the scenes to add value to every molecule of milk, and even a milk drinker who is fueling up to win the race of her life. That's what we have in store for you on STtalks and Uplevel Dairy Podcast this week.
And our guest today is Jan King of Kings-Ransom Farm and King Brothers Dairy, where he and his brother Jeff have taken control of their milk, started processing a delicious and nutritious product, and have connected with their local consumer to serve out milk and ice cream from their home farm and through distribution. Thanks for being with us today, Jan. Just to kick us off, can you start by telling us some of the history behind your farm, Kings-Ransom Farm, and what does this look like today? Who's involved, and what does the farm dynamic look like?
All right, good morning. Kings-Ransom Farm is a little over 125-year-old dairy operation. We're located in Schuylerville in eastern New York, about halfway between New York City and Montreal. And today, the farm is a 1,200 cow registered Holstein dairy farm. In addition to having the registered cows, we also have a on-farm creamery where we produce products with our own milk and sell them locally here in our region. The farm is owned by my brother Jeff and myself and run by us and our wives. My wife is a veterinarian and she does the veterinary work here. Jeff's wife does some of the financials and is in charge of our on-farm store, as well as some of the ice cream production. And then we're fortunate enough to have the fifth generation back here on the farm. Two of Jeff's boys are here with us, and then we have some other kids that are in college. So,
well, what a fantastic story! Yeah, and five generations into the family as well now, as you said.
Yeah, that's really neat to have. And one of the things my brother Jeff and I have tried to do over the years is to have a business where it's large enough that there's 5 kids that between the two of us, and that if any of the next generation want to come back, there's a spot for them, and there's certainly opportunities to challenge them and help grow and push the business forward. So
yeah, and when you talk about those opportunities, is that what led to some of this diversification in the first place? I mean, as you mentioned, this farm has been in the family for 120 some years, and as we just talked about, 5 generations. And as you look to do exactly what you just said, set the business up to be able to expand and move forward. Talk a little bit more about that decision to bring processing into the family business. Where did that all start?
So ever since I was a kid, my father he actually started with Guernseys when he was out of college. And Guernseys were a very popular breed in the 50s and early 60s. And he came home from college in the early 60s and started milking Guernseys, but soon switched to Holsteins. And for as long as I can remember, we've had registered Holsteins, and my father has tried to sell some bulls and some extra offspring. So that's always been, growing up as a kid, a small part of our business. And today that's a much larger part. It not only comes from just having the registered cattle, but it's really a passion for registered cows and the genetic side of the business, as well as a little bit of a hobby. That portion of the business is done more my brother Jeff, as well as with his son John. So we've always had a little bit of extra diversification to the farm, but as we think back, my grandfather and great uncles processed milk from the early 1900s into the early 60s. And at that point, larger processing plants were in play and homogenization, and much of the milk prior to the early 60s was never homogenized. So that business faded away, but the farm continued for my dad when he um, came home from college. So growing up as kids, it was always just really cool. You'd go into one of the old barns, and in one of the back stalls, you'd pick up there's two or three old wood milk crates with glass bottles in it that had the logo from when my grandfather processed milk. So there was a lot of nostalgia there. And you have a couple of those sitting on the mantle in the house, and over the years, you always say, "Boy, just wouldn't it be great to have milk in glass bottles again?" And even as early as the 2000s, we talked about processing milk again. But we were Jeff and I are graduates of Cornell, and at that time, um, expansion was the buzzword, and being efficient and having enough cows to have an efficient operation. So, we tried to grow our business, and we were, when we came home from school, the farm was 140 cows. So over the next 20 years, we grew to about 1,000, and that was kind of the primary focus. But we always kept saying, "Boy, wouldn't it be great to bottle milk again? Wouldn't it be great to bottle milk?" And finally, in 2010, we found a small processor that bottled glass to bottle milk for us. And so we sent out some emails, and we got 40 customers. And so we started delivering milk. And it was really just a great community response, and people loved it. And that business has grown over the years, to where we deliver to 400 plus customers here in our um, local area. And but we still didn't have total control of everything that we did, and we really wanted to have total control. We have incredible quality milk, and we wanted to be able to put that in a bottle and sell that. So that was the start of getting into the milk business. When you start, you don't have any customers, you don't have a processing facility. So which comes first, the chicken or the egg type deal? And so we started out by going to find customers, and had somebody else process for us for a while.
So when you started in on this process, Jan, it sounds like, you really started heavily in bottling milk. And when you came back to, your own farm site for this processing, how did you decide which products you were going to create and take to market? How did you find the people to do this process with you? I mean, it takes a lot of skill to create some of these dairy products out there. So how did you find the people that are in the back in the processing plant, creating these products, and maybe the minds that are helping create these flavors, all of what you're marketing out in your farm store? How did that all happen?
It never goes as fast as you want. It's always a step by step process. And some of the things, just the way that it happened, uh, we were probably fortunate. So we started, somebody else processed milk for us, and we bought that and sold it to customers. And then we added a few products. We added some orange juice, we added our own ground beef. Then we started finding some other products in the area, other local products. We had jam, and we would do fresh fruit in the summer, strawberries and blueberries and melons, and things just kind of evolved. And I mean, we actually started out having one refrigerator that we would bring the milk back and fill that refrigerator up, and it was and we delivered 1 day a week, and then it became 2 days a week, and then eventually you add on and you get a walk-in cooler, and then more products and more customers, and so things. So we kind of got good at. Well, we thought we were good at delivering, and we did a pretty good job. And 2 years after we started, we purchased a small delivery company that bought milk from another larger processor, and they delivered to small stores and restaurants right outside from where the farm is here in the Saratoga region. And that that ended up being a great tool and learning step for us. The person we bought the business from still works for us today. We bought it, so he's worked for us for 12 years. And he even showed us the importance of great customer service and how to treat customers. And we're the little guy. And so we can't do it the cheapest, so somehow we have to do it better. And he taught us how to treat the customers great and how to rotate products and how to make sure that you're looking for the products that they need when they're busy. And so there were a lot of things there that happened that made our business better before we processed milk. And so when we finally started processing milk in 2016, when we finished our creamery, we had a lot of those things in place. We were delivering at that time with, I don't remember, but maybe 3 trucks. So we had the delivery under control, and we had customers and how to bill customers and do all that under control. And now we had to learn how to make sure we could take our high quality raw milk and do a good job and put it in a bottle to be able to sell. So it was a little bit of a step by step process. You asked about how we decided to what we were going to process, and uh, I think only because my grandfather did it, we decided to do fluid milk. And as I know today, fluid milk. I don't think any of the products that you process are just easy. None of it sells itself. When you do it on farm, you have a great story. You can have fabulous quality product and great tasting product, which you need to, because when you compete with the big companies, you can't compete on price. So you have to do something different. But then it still needs to get sold to be sold. So we started with fluid milk, and we did that for uh, probably close to 4 years before fluid products, milk and cream, before we did anything else. So that's what that was the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. So, Jan, as you talk about just how the business has progressed over the years, the growth of the dairy for one, and then the growth on this processing side and the steps along the way, something that I'm hearing from you that reminds me of some just kind of business mindset information that I've taken in over the years, and that was this concept that there's 3 things and you can pick which game you're going to win at, and you kind of touched on this a little bit. You can try to be the cheapest, right? You can try to win that game, being able to produce the product the cheapest. You can try to be the biggest. You can try the biggest brand, have the largest scale, or you can win on the experience. And you were just mentioning that a little bit too with the story and how you're able to connect with a customer and a consumer based on the story that could be told from a product that came from your farm and the beautiful history behind that you just shared as well. And so I want to dig into that piece a little bit with you, that customer experience piece. So how have you taken this story, woven it together, and then also coupled it with this interaction of delivery of the farm, of a point of contact, and created a truly connecting customer experience that you can be really, really darn good at?
All the points except one. And to go along with that customer experience, we're not the biggest, we're not the cheapest, but we have to have the best product out there. If we
Mm.
don't, my feeling is we better not do it. So we start with an incredible quality product, and we tell customers you need to taste it, and they agree it's the best tasting milk uh, in our area. And we not only want it to taste good, but we want it to last longer. And we have the longest shelf life of anybody in our area. So those two things right there is where we start, and we got to have somebody taste it. And then if they start looking at our product and they look at the back of the label, or they go on to Facebook or Instagram, they can see a little bit more about us. And then for the local customers here, hopefully they're intrigued a little bit by a local farm, a local product, and they say, "Oh, that's kind of cool." Oh, the next thing they say is, "Geez, we can go to the farm and see or do more." So we get then can get them to the farm. We have an on-farm store, and we have some animals out toward the front of our facility, the farm, where they can see some calves and interact a little bit with some of the animals. And I mean, most people never get that interaction. So to come see uh, baby calves or small heifers, they absolutely love it. And to top it off, they can go in our store, they can grab a chocolate milk, or they can, and we also make ice cream now. So you can come out, you can say, huh, I know where the milk that I have on my cereal in the morning, I know where it comes from. And I know where the cows are. And I see that they're being taken care of. That, oh, hopefully maybe they've met one of the owners walking through the store or outside. And then that customer starts to gain an appreciation, gain some respect, especially if the product tastes good. And why wouldn't somebody want to know where their food comes from? They do. And so you you get that connection. And then there's a lot of things you can do to amp that up, um, to make that experience better, to give more information, to teach them more. So the social media, so Instagram and Facebook, what we use, we post fun facts. Sometimes we put a video on there of something happening, and all those things just create uh, hopefully a mechanism to grab one of those customers and become a loyal customer and a repeat purchaser.
Yeah. So you are elevating the customer experience with this full circle approach that connects the product right back to the farm and the faces behind it. And you touched on that missing piece, before too, of creating the highest quality, best product out there. So let's take a moment, because there are two things that you mentioned that I think our audience, which is a lot of people in the dairy industry, would be really interested to hear. And you said two things. One was talking about creating the best quality, the best tasting products. And when we talk about milk, how does that, I want to hear about how that relates back to the on-farm production side. And then the other thing that I want to lead into from there is you talked about extending the shelf life. And so on the milk processing side, what is being done to extend that shelf life? And then I also want to hear what's being done on the farm management side to ensure the quality of product, whether it's genetics, whether it's, just managing milk quality, somatic cell count. Can you dig into those two different things a little bit?
Sure, but I'm going to switch the way you want to talk about it. So
Go for it.
first, I'm going to talk about, first of all, what happens in both places. We wouldn't be able to do this without great people here. We have great people on the farm. They've been with us for years. They have tremendous cow care. They care about what happens. They want to produce high quality milk and lots of it, and they do a phenomenal job. And in addition, we have those same type of people that work in our store that really care about a great customer experience, making sure the customers are happy. And the people that work on the processing side, they're focused on cleanliness and quality and taste, and we do that, like I mentioned earlier, from some of the things we learned from the person we bought their business, that we want to go to deliver to the customers. And when you do that, when you go and rotate their milk, no other milk company does that. The big guys don't do that. They come and they drop it in the back room or the back cooler, and they're gone. And we make sure that it's right. So we try to do it in at every step. And we couldn't do this without having a crew of phenomenal people. That's number one. So as we look at then where the milk process starts, it's on the farm. And the outside crew, they're focused, just like many other farm crews, on putting in high quality, digestible forage. And when you do that, the cows are healthier, they make more milk, and that's where it starts. And then it moves on into the people that take care of the cows, how they handle the cows, how they milk the cows, the milking routine. All those things are important. And there's many farms that do that all correctly. So those things have to happen, and we want to have a high quality raw milk supply. Low bacteria counts, low somatic cell counts, always kept cold. Uh, we take that milk and it's cooled, and sometimes within 2 or 3 hours, it's getting bottled in the milk plant. So all that helps. It doesn't get loaded on a truck. It doesn't get pumped on. It doesn't get pumped off. It goes right to the milk plant, and we bottle it. So from the farm side, it's just like any other top farm. You got to do a good job. So then the milk processing, the process is not hard, but you need to learn the process, and then you need to be clean, clean, clean. You got to wash your equipment, and you got to wash your hands, and whatever you do has to be clean. You're producing a product that people are going to eat, and that's super important. You don't want somebody to get sick because you made a mistake. So all those things are on our mind all the time.
Consistently doing the right things right, and the most basic things: cleanliness, taking care of cows, putting up good quality feed, customer service, carrying that all the way through. How about on the genetic side within your Holstein herd? Are there things that you're doing genetically that you feel contribute to producing a high quality milk that yields the high quality experience for that direct consumer?
So there absolutely is, and this is more my brother's department than it is mine. And he and his son look at the available bulls and the genetics and conformation traits and health traits, and put all those things together to try to make the right mating for the next offspring. And I think it's really pretty cool to see the genetic advancement in our herd. And I think you can see that in herds across the country. And even if the farm doesn't pay as close attention to it as we do, the animal today that is born is leaps and bounds ahead of what it was 2 years ago and 5 and 10 years ago. And we produce more milk, and we produce uh, more butter fat in Holstein cows, and all those things are super important. And for us as fluid milk producers, and then we don't do cheese, but cheese is for cheese yield and protein. But for fluid milk, it's all about the cream. It's not about the skim. Everybody's got extra skim. So how do you produce higher yielding milk with more butter fat? Whole milk is becoming predominantly the milk of choice, which is wonderful. And then having extra cream where we can make ice cream, or something else with that.
So this is all such an excellent story to hear, and it just truly shows the passion that your whole family is putting into this kind of herd to home connection that you've created. But this business structure is not something that everyone can achieve, and it's definitely not easy. You said before that things definitely don't happen as fast as you would like them to, or you have these ideas in your mind that you really want to execute, but a lot of times challenges arise. So, what have been some of the biggest challenges that have happened in this processing and marketing of your milk? But then also, what are maybe some of the ways that you've overcome those challenges, but the bigger achievements that you would like to, stick your flag in?
Doing on-farm processing and trying to capture more dollars from the product you're making is a super idea, and people should look at it and try to see if there's a way that they can do it. Uh, don't go into it thinking that it's going to be a silver bullet. There's nothing that's a silver bullet, whether it's financial success or happiness. It all takes a lot of work. And sometimes I think back at what we've done, and this is a lot harder than I ever expected. And every day there's a new challenge, and putting milk in the bottle is really one of the easiest things we do. It's all the other things that go with it. And so it does take some skills, some that I don't have, that we have to look elsewhere for outside the business. It takes oversight and follow up in every section of the business. So when you're looking at something like this, if you're going to do it on a real small scale and you can do it all yourself, you'll be just fine. But if you want to scale that up, it's not only it's hiring qualified individuals, people that need a salary versus maybe on farm or family help. So there's a lot of things there to think about.
To follow up with that, what, when your family is looking at what you have all created here on farm, what is the biggest achievement that your family just holds like really close to their heart, or that they're just proud of, that you guys have worked hard for?
When I think back over the 7 or 8 years that we've been doing this, I think that the thing that makes me feel the best, or when I feel a little sense of pride, is when a customer says to me, "Oh my gosh, that's the best tasting milk or ice cream that I've ever had." And farming is a difficult business. It's 7 days a week. And there's not a lot of times that somebody says to you, "Hey, good job," and pat you on the back, because we never get that interaction as farmers when you put milk on a truck and send it down the road to the consumer. And you never have that interaction because they like the cheddar cheese or they like the style of yogurt. But when you have a customer saying that to you, there's some satisfaction there, and you know that all the hard work, all the long hours, the whatever it might be, there's a reason that you do it. And so that's probably the most gratifying type of comments that I think we all here appreciate.
Yeah. So when you get that moment, when it comes full circle, the person that is directly consuming the product from your farm and getting that direct feedback about the quality of the product you're producing and the whole, as we keep talking about, this whole experience and connection around it, that's it. Like, that's the moment.
For sure. And I think about the customer experience that we have here in our store, and the so many during the summer, many of the people that scoop ice cream are work in high school, and we go through a little training process with them. And just one of the simplest things that we tell them is to be engage yourself with the customer and smile.
Mm.
And customers, time after time after time, say, "Oh, you have such a nice staff." And I mean, there's a little thing that goes an awful long way and brings a customer back a second time. So that's it's always
Yeah.
nice to have somebody serving you with a smile and enjoy what they're doing. So
Dan, one of the things I really appreciate and love about what you've been sharing with us today in the story of the farm and the processing side is that everything comes so full circle in the way that you focused on growth and advancements and what's the next step and the next right move in the business and for the family, you still really stayed true to some common values that go all the way back to the very beginning and the roots of that family business and the customer service. And just, I'd summarize what I'm hearing from you as the word culture, the culture of the family business, the culture of of the farm, and just the ability to really create that, replicate it, and do it at the highest level. That's such a really cool part of this whole story. And as we think about the other producers out there that, as we talked about before, that are looking at how they could start businesses like this on their farm, how they could start taking their own products and creating a space for them and a place to connect directly to the consumer. Is there any other key advice that you would give to those people? Or maybe let me put it this way. If you were to be able to talk to yourself 12 years ago, what do you wish you would have known then that you didn't know that you know now?
So, farmers are pretty resilient, and whatever's thrown at them, there's ups and downs, and boy, they seem to be able to find a way to make it work. And I'm not sure, when I think back at the different things that we've gone through, sometimes I say to myself, boy, maybe we shouldn't have done fluid milk. When you go to the retail chains and you're the little guy, and they could care less whether they have your product on the shelf, uh, and you're fighting with that big retailer, and they're putting their milk on sale for $1.99, and yours is $4.79 or whatever the price is, much higher, and you wonder, oh, this is tough. Should I really be trying to sell fluid milk? But I think you gotta keep at it. You gotta continue down that road, because there are customers that appreciate and enjoy and love the taste of the products that you make. So I'm sure if I did uh, cheese and had that on the shelf, there'd be times when I might say the same thing. So um, I think you just gotta you need to stay the path. Hopefully, you've made a uh, strategy to move your business and forward. And one other thing I would mention, because there's many different facets to processing. That if you're the farm, you're making the milk, but there's milk procurement, and there's milk processing, and there's distribution, and there's sales, and there's marketing. Uh, People should grade of possibly partnering. Now you need to find the right partner, but sometimes somebody might be a great salesperson or marketer, and somebody else might be better at the nuts and bolts or the processing side of the business. So if you could find some synergies between different people, uh, that's always, I think, a tremendous positive in trying to move your business forward.
Mm. So themes here are resilience, as you've learned from the farming business, and as many of our listeners are the example of as well, and looking for those strategic partnerships to be able to take what you're good at, what they're good at, and move the needle on both of your businesses together.
And Jan, as you look towards the future, how do you think, like Peggy had said earlier, a lot of those that are tuning in are dairy producers. And the conversation of how do we connect with our consumers is constantly being had. So how do you think dairy producers could improve their reach to consumers and boost consumers' trust and enjoyment of dairy products? I think that you have set a great example here. How do you think we can take this further?
So I think I'm pausing for a second because I'm thinking of a few different things. We have some help with some of the marketing that we do. So there's to get some outside ideas. Some of the things that we do on social media that are fairly low cost, I think I think they work really well. They work real well in your geographic area first, but then once to expand outside of that takes more time. It probably takes more dollars, but hopefully at that point, once you've gotten to a certain point and you're looking to grow, whether it's your geographic footprint or the people that you're trying to touch, might take some more more types of marketing that would cause more, that would be more advertisement, more dollars spent than just on a Facebook or Instagram. So we haven't gotten to that point where our footprint is much bigger than our local area, but it is growing, and we still work every day to try to figure out how we can connect to those people through our with our story, but do it at a reasonable cost.
Definitely.
No, Jan, just with a thank you for taking the time to join us on this special episode. This is part of our June Dairy Month series, and what a perfect fit you are to be able to relate not only to being a dairyman for your life and multiple generations in your family, but also being on the processing side and really through it all tying in these core fundamentals of the way that you run both businesses, which at the core value level sounds like they parallel each other quite well. And I think those are some of the things we can all take away from what you've shared with us, Jan, today from King's Brothers Dairy and also King-Ransom Farm. So thank you for joining us for this special June Dairy Month podcast.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you asking me to be on.
Well, folks, thank you for joining us so much this week for this special series to celebrate June Dairy Month. You have been on the journey with us following milk from the farm. It's starting out at Jones Dairy with farms that are inviting consumers right out for a seat at the table and a seat in front of their viewing window. You've learned about sustainability and efforts from Bar 20 Dairy in California, followed up with insightful innovations from Eve Pollitt at Dairy Management Incorporated. You even got to hear from a marathon runner who also happens to be Laura's sister-in-law, Rachel, about how milk is fueling her across the finish line, as well as Paul Zamiski from Dairy Management Incorporated on the innovation that he is working to help push more milk into the marketplace. And we followed up with this final episode in our series this week with Jan King, learning about the full circle approach of connecting a product to a consumer and right to a dairy farm. And this has all been in this special series to celebrate June Dairy Month with the Uplevel Dairy Podcast and STtalks. I'm Peggy Coffeen, host of the Uplevel Dairy Podcast, and thank you so much for joining us in this series. You can check out Uplevel Dairy Podcast and follow on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
And again, I'm Laura Demmer. It's been my honor to be a part of this June Dairy Month series. And you can find STtalks on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and Deezer. Or you can learn more about STgenetics by visiting our website at STgen.com. Again, just echoing what Peggy has said, thank you so much for joining us as we celebrate June Dairy Month. STtalks and Uplevel Dairy Podcasts are extremely proud to have brought you these stories, and we hope that throughout the month, maybe you enjoy an extra glass of milk or an extra slice of cheese, and we hope that you can celebrate the dairy farmers that are in your life.